All right, hi everybody, and welcome to our little demo on looking at internal controls. Now theoretically we should be doing this first before we did the substantive testing, but it's the same case that you had before, and so I'm going to do some of the same things. So a lot of this stuff is not new, so of course remember, start with your initials, and what's today, the 6th of the 10th. Okay, and we've got a number of different tests to do here. For orders over 5,000, check for the signature. For each copy of the packing slip, check that the courier has signed as proof of shipment. For each sales invoice, check that the correct price from the master list has been used. Check the automatic calculation from the line item is correct, because that's part of the controls. And that there's an automatic calculation for the total on the invoice. And that the journal entry is on the same date as the invoice, because when you go back here to the case and you read through the information, there's an automated invoicing and pricing system that automatically results in journal entries. So reading the case is really critical to do first. All right, and then we have a similar table that we had before, so we're going to need to fill that in with information about the transactions. Now remember, these are all controls, so what I'm looking for is deviations, and it says here if there are more than 2 deviations, then I'm going to need to adjust my original control risk assessment of low. So this conclusion page I can worry about later. So my first step is always numbering my work papers. All right, so let's assume this is a different set than we had before. We'd have work paper 203, 204, 205, 206, 207, and 208. So let's go back to our very first procedure. Oh, and you can forget about these, those are accidental marks, they shouldn't be there. First test, for all orders over 5,000, check for the sales manager's signature, use tick A. All right, so here we have the orders, and we definitely have some that are missing their approval. All right, however, when we go to the case information, the case information says that we must approve all orders over 5,000. So anything under 5,000 doesn't need an order. Okay, so we're going to use the A tick mark. So I'm going to put it right here next to the order A, because those are all correct. And I'm going to start recording the information in my table. All right, customer orders. Okay, so for manager's approval, we've got tick, 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 tick. Okay, test B. So we've done this one. Test B. For each copy of the packing slip, check that the courier has signed as proof of shipment. All right. Here we go. Here are our packing slips. And where the courier has signed, we're going to use the tick mark B. Okay, so correct, 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 incorrect, signature, missing. All right, and I'm going to cross-reference that to the work paper where I'm recording the information. So courier signature is missing for this one, but correct for all the others. Okay, so this one is done. On each invoice, check that the correct price from the master price list is used. Now you might notice this is a double up from our substantive tests. because some tests can be what we call dual purpose. Dual purpose means that it can test a control and it can be a substantive test. All right, and I use tick mark C. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so what we can see there is all of the prices are correct. I'm going to go back here. It's using the correct prices. And that's on work papers 205 and 208. All right. Now let's look at test D. On each invoice, check the automatic line calculation for each item. Okay, so I need my invoices and I need a calculator, and I'll speed this up on the video so you don't have to worry about time taken. But what I need to do is I need to do quantity times price, and if the cost is correct, I'm going to use tick mark D. Okay, so if we go back here, line calculations are correct for all of them, which means I can fill in this. All right, test E. On each invoice, check that the calculation for the total, so before this was the line item, now it's the total is correct using tick mark E. All right, so more calculations. All right, so we can see all of our invoice totals are correct. Tick, 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 tick. We fill this in on our master sheet. Okay, and that just leaves us with F. Check that the journal entry exists on the same date as the date on the invoice. All right, so I've got my journal entries and I've got my invoices. So let's make sure the dates match up. 17th of the 1st. That's correct. Okay, so the journal entries are all correct. And here we've completed our tests of controls. All right, so all of these controls seem to work except this one here. So let's go to our finishing sheet, if I can find it. All right, so here, conclusions on whether controls are operating effectively. All right, so based on the controls that we have from our case, and remember, we're only worried about the controls that are here in this document. We can see that the only deviation that we have, let me get the right pages out. We have this one deviation here, and that's less than the 2 that are allowed, that we've set really as our materiality level or our deviation level for controls. So whether controls are operating effectively, so we'd say yes, only 1 deviation found, less than tolerable level of 2 deviations. Okay, so then the question says, what should control risk be? And remember back here, it says it's low. So that means with our deviations less than that number, I can confirm my control risk. So I'm going to write here, confirm preliminary assessment of CR as low. Now certainly we might want to investigate this missing courier signature. So investigate missing signature, and you might need to potentially consider increase the substantive testing around this. Okay. Now I know what some people are probably going to say to me, or they're going to write to me and say, hang on Amanda, we have an issue because the company, let me find all the right documents. For example, in here, the customer ordered 90, we set them 90, but we only charged them for 85. And when we did the substantive testing section, that certainly came up as a key issue. However, there is no control at the company to make sure that these 3 numbers match. So that would certainly be a weakness that we'd want to investigate in substantive testing. Why didn't I raise it here? Because I'm testing controls and that's not covered under the test of controls. What you might notice is this sort of test is similar to what was done in the substantive testing, and you might not duplicate it. You might just do it once and apply it as both a control test and as a substantive test. However, we know that this issue here with the quantity does create some flow-on effects. So to finish up, all I need to make sure I do is go back to my master table. I've done all of these things. I've documented my deviations, and I've made a conclusion that control risk can remain at low, though I may want to do some extra substantive investigation around the courier signature. So that's it for our control testing exercise. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments or post a question on the UTS Online discussion board. Have a good night, everybody.